Okay.
What up?
Wait, hold on.
Hold on.
Start.
Let's suck
You
it.
cut.
Get me through here.
If you don't do it, I'll do it.
What up? It's the Trooper. You're watching Live at the Bike. Is that right?
Is that right? Is that the name of the show?
Yeah.
You bought everything you have on you, Trooper?
The discount he's gonna sell in his new speech.
Wow.
Thank you to everybody for being here. Our liveatthebike.com subscribers, you guys are awesome. You guys really do carry us. So thank you to all of you guys for tuning in tonight to Live at the Bike. We have so many good things lined up for you guys in the near future.
In this hand, I make a standard open with pocket sevens in early middle position. I bumped it up to 35, which is kind of where the standard size is kind of gravitated towards for the table. Ramsey is on the button and makes a 3-bet to 105, which is pretty typical sizing, nothing weird there. Folds back around to me, and I decide to make the call. We are fairly deep to start this hand. I think we're actually a little bit over 2K deep. I think the graphic is slightly wrong here, and we're just about 2K deep to start the hand. So we go heads up to a flop, which there's only really one word for it. Flavorful.
As we check in with this hand, Ramsey 3-betting the button with pocket jacks, Matt calling with pocket sevens, and look at this, Matt with top set. Matt Vaughan on the verge of winning a huge pot against Ramsey Dew, who has an overpair here and is not likely to slow down.
The flop comes 7-4-3, two-tone, so I have top set and a 3-bet pot against a guy who is probably just gonna be trying to get me to fold most of the time with his bluffs and gonna just bet every overpair for value. He's the kind of player who understands his image, so when he is in a spot like this with an overpair, he's just gonna bet most of the time. So already in this spot, I'm kind of planning to go check call unless something very weird happens, like 2 diamonds come out, or a straight completes on the board or something like that. There's some runouts where I could choose to do something different, but my plan in the hand is to check call it off. If he were to check back the turn or something, I would bet the river, just kind of standard stuff like that. But I'm not planning to put a raise in at any point in this hand. I do end up facing a bet here, and it's a pretty large one. He bets 200 into about 230. This is like one of those weird spots where maybe I would want to deviate from what I said. If he's betting this large, is he really ever folding to like a small size raise? But I just decided to stick with the plan. I didn't really have a great understanding of how he would interpret a check raise here, and so I just wanted to kind of take the safe route and not really worry about blowing him off any hands or bluffs.
And let's see if Matt goes for the raise now.
He just calls, which Ramsey showed huge bet on that turn, so, or on the flop, so.
And look at this, Matt now with top boat, and if Ramsey bets again here, how does Matt play it? If he check raises, he's going to look super strong here, but Ramsey has an overpair and is just not going to fold in this spot.
So I go ahead and call as planned, and we're off to a turn card, which is probably one of the best ones in the deck, just because I make a boat, which means I'm not really worried about the run out anymore. Even if he has equity, it's really only 2 outs that he can hit. And at the same time, the 3 that completes my boat also makes it less likely for me to have sets from his perspective. So pretty great card, great situation, still planning to check call. So I do go ahead and check. He bets 500 into 630 now. And again, with this really large sizing, it's hard to kind of stay the course. I think it's hard to not just put in a raise when I see that size and say like, yeah, let's get the money in. But when I think about what types of hands I would do that with as bluffs, I don't think I have any. If I do, it's all stuff that has, so much equity or what have you, but so few combos that I actually have more boats than those things. So I still felt that check calling was going to be best. If I check jam, he gets the chance to fold all his bluffs. It's probably unlikely that he folds any overpairs just because of the hands that we've played together so far. But him folding his bluffs is kind of a disaster for us when I think there's a decent chance he'll just shovel them in on the river. There's also a chance that if I jam, he would fold something like a weak flush draw where he could make it on the river and just not ever be doing anything but getting the money in with it. So I do go ahead and decide to call. There's about 1,200 behind, and the pot is substantially larger than that now.
500 from Ramsey.
He's just staring Matt down too. I mean, usually if you see that, I would assume that would be someone being weak. And I think in this case, Ramsey just thinks he has it.
I think Matt's just going to call and set the trap. He knows Ramsey's aggressive. Ramsey doesn't always have an overpair here. He does just call. And the river's at 9. And Ramsey might be jamming here.
And he checks it to him.
All in. Call.
And a snap call on the all-in. Matt Vaughan wins a massive, almost $4,000 pot against Ramsey. Induces Ramsey to jam with his overpair, pocket jacks. And Matt, who has 7s full, is going to stack Ramsey for $3,860. What a hand. Matt Vaughan is destroying this game tonight. He now is up to over $4,000. Matt Vaughan now up over $3K today, just crushing it. He's won the 2 biggest pots tonight.
He played that like a champ.
Wow.
And I was going to ask you, too, how you would feel about checking it over to Ramsey, especially like if no big cards come. Like,
yeah, I mean, he just played it perfect. I mean, you know, not only can Ramsey have an overpair there and just jam because he's an aggressive player, but he also could just have random bluffs. And so you keep all of them in his range. You let him bet his really strong hands for value and also bet his bluffs. Meanwhile, you're sitting there with top boat and you just snap him off.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a good one. I had another one.
Nicely played by Matt Vaughan. He is crushing the game. We'll talk about that in a second. Chip counts here. Matt up over 3K now. Jordan up about 500. The Trooper up almost 400. Jamie Staples up over 400. Here's the VPIPs. Wee's the most active, playing 44% of hands. And then a big drop off after that. Brad and Jamie the tightest at 10 and 15%. Trooper's right there in the middle at 23, along with Wayne and Ramsey.
Yeah, I was directing my first porn set at 10 years.
Pre-flop raise percentages. Ramsey the most active, no surprise. 20%. Brad and Jamie at the bottom. 5% raise for Brad. He hasn't really had many hands tonight.
Yeah, bro. Like, no YouTube or anything. Yeah.
Matt Vaughan is winning, right? Yeah, something like that.
Only like 3K.
In a 1K cap, by the way.
Yeah, small win.
You're gonna be here till 5 and you're money back.
That's better last night.
He's in for most of it, honestly.
Raising and betting in this game. Oh, wait a minute.
I don't know.
That's a string.
I heard the LA games were good.
This game sucks.
150 from Brad.
I heard the LA games were good. I heard the LA games were good.
In this hand, Wee's open limps, and I decided to overlimp ace-5 of hearts. I could potentially make a case for raising here, but I think being in late position, it's fine to overlimp and take a hand that's going to perform well multi-way. So I overlimp, and we end up going 5 ways to the flop, actually. The flop comes king 5-4 rainbow, and it checks around to me.
King 5-4, 2 spades, open ender for raise.
Never noticed it. Now that you say that, yeah.
Pair for Matt.
You know what I mean? I just have
Most people are people in this hand. $1 drink or have never had one.
Yeah, that's definitely a spot you gotta bump it up.
40.
Bet 40. Unless they're.
I go ahead and put out a bet with second pair because in a limped pot, it's going to be pretty unusual for someone to check the king here on such a wet board. So I put out the bet. Ramsey is the only caller, so already you can see that there's some interesting dynamics that could happen here.
Ramsey's going to call. And you can definitely count on Ramsey making a big bluff.
Yeah, but I don't. He's sitting at a poker table. I don't think he's Mormon. You know what I mean?
Turns a deuce. That is the nuts for Ramsey. He's going to check it over to Matt.
When the turn card comes to 2 that brings in a couple hands, improves a couple hands to 2 pair, and doesn't like substantially improve my equity, I decided to check it back.
Do you know what Ramsey's favorite course, like food is?
Oh, huevos rancheros.
I don't know much about it. You study religion, though. You said.
Too obvious of a setup?
With some nuts on top. Ramsey going to overbet here, 400 into 140 after it goes check on the turn. A nearly 3x overbet from Ramsey. An 8 on the river is interesting because Ramsey could also have 6-7, not just the 6-3 that he does have. You don't actually expect him to have 6-3 when he flats the small blind. Or it's a limp pot, but straddle bat, but calls from the small blind.
Does Matt feel like being a hero twice tonight?
I assume it happens. We provide this community that reinforces.
Let's see if he can make a good decision here. He's made good decisions all night.
The river ends up coming out in offsuit 8, which brings in yet another straight, and Ramsey now bets 400 into 140. My decision-making thought process in this hand was a little bit roundabout, not super well crafted. I was trying to think less about what exact hands he would play this way in general and more about what our dynamics were up until this point in the session, because I'd already made a really big call against him early. So he knows that I know that he's capable of doing this stuff and that I'm willing to call down light as well. And when I get to this river card, I do look like I have a medium strength hand or potentially missed draw. And I don't really ever have the nuts, but because he's already seen me make a huge call, it just felt like he'd be a little bit less likely to bluff me in a similar spot. And a couple of draws really did come in. I also think that he's going to play some of his nutted flush draws as a check raise on the flop rather than check calling them. So that does take out some of those hands, although it's difficult to say like how much of the time he does that and whether he plays some of his straight draws that way too. But the other thing is that there's just a lot more nutted combos that make sense on this board. So like ace-3, 6-3, and 6-7, and Ramsey's in the small blind. He's just going to have a very wide range here pre. So I can't really discount any of those value hands, as well as hands like 8-5, 8-4 suited, 5-4, 5 deuce, 4 deuce. He could play any of those hands like this, I think, because when I play like this, he just beats my whole range. So I did end up deciding to fold, and it ended up being the right fold, but, you know, we had a conversation about this at the table later. It's like, you know, who knows who's going to kind of get the best of it the next time we play, or, you know, the third or fourth time we play. It's just kind of, he's going to be capable of doing a lot of crazy stuff. I'm going to be capable of calling down light some of the time, maybe playing back at him. So it was, you know, it was difficult to play against him, but definitely interesting. Good exercise, good sort of stretching the thought process in game and in a somewhat bigger game than what I'm used to playing.
And Matt Vaughan is going to make the right fold with his 5. Anyway, here are the chip counts. Matt is up almost 3K. Ramsey's up 500. Jamie's up 500. Trooper's up 150 now. Brad and Andrew Nemi both stuck in this game. VPIP's Wheeze 45%, followed by Ramsey. No surprise, those are the two most active players. Brad the tightest at 12%. Ramsey raising 27% of hands. Brad the tightest, followed by Jamie and the Trooper.
We need more drinks on this table.
Here comes the bomb pot. Looks like they're all putting in $50 in.
So again, if you don't know what a bomb pot is, if you aren't familiar, everybody puts in $50 pre-flop. Everybody puts in that set amount, and they go to the flop. So there's no pre-flop action, but the hand does play out normally post-flop. Everybody can look at their hand. They can do whatever they want. Once the flop comes, there's just no pre-flop action. Everybody puts in a set amount pre-flop. It looks like $50 each here. So it'll be a $450 pot, and they will play it out from the flop on. Can't range anybody pre-flop. So we have a nut flush draw for Matt, a gutter and a flush draw for Ramsey, a pair for Jordan, a pair and a gutter for Jamie, a gutter for Brad, top pair and a gutter for Andrew, Ace King for Wheeze, top for Wayne, and a pair for the Trooper. Wow. Somebody needs to put some money in this pot because everybody has something here. Somehow Ace King is the worst hand, basically, in the mix here.
Wow.
So Andrew has top pair, and he has 2% equity, but he has the best hand at
No,
the
Wayne has the best hand, top.
Oh, Wayne is top. That's why. Okay, I'm so confused. I'm trying to figure it out. That makes sense. So Wayne is top. He has the best hand. So much stuff going on here. Andrew's gonna bet.
In this hand, it's a bomb pot, so we've all put in $50 pre-flop blind, and we just all continue to the flop and go on with play from there. So there's 450 bucks in the middle, and we just go to this flop, which is an absolute action board. It's Queen 9-8 with 2 clubs, and pretty much everyone has a hand. Now, I won't talk too much about this hand just because I think that there is not too much strategy that's well known about bomb pots, and I don't feel that I can really comment super intelligently about them. But my basic thought was, with the nut flush draw here, which I have, and with a lot of people in the hand, my flush draw is actually more valuable just because people can have basically worse draws that are dominated by my hand. They can also potentially have multiple people in the field with a hand that can get it in, and I'd be willing to get it in against both of them almost with the same equity with my draw. Really the only bad spots I'm in would be if like 1 or 2 people also have flush draws and one person has like a nutted hand where I just don't have a lot of outs, but that's not going to be that common. So when Andrew puts out a bet here, I just decide I'm pretty much committed to this hand. I'm going to put it in a raise that also kind of makes it clear I'm committed to the hand, because sometimes I'll also just get folds. It's unusual, but it can happen in these bomb pots where, because everyone starts out with a 100% VPIP range, they can just fold, you know, whatever, like the bottom 90% of that.
Matt is going to raise to 850, and this pot is getting big. And Jamie with a pair and a gutter has to fold. Jordan has to fold. And Ramsey with a gutter and a flush draw. He is not folding here. Ramsey might be all in here. This pot got big really fast.
Do that, and then he did that. Don't you love this game? Things happen, and you gotta adapt.
And Ramsey folds.
Wow.
Ramsey folds a flush draw and a gutter. And now here's Wayne. Wayne folds! And Wheeze folds. Oh, man. There's some really good hands in this bomb pot, and they all had to fold. How do Ramsey and Wayne fold in that spot? Man, if Matt calls, it would have been a massive pot. But Matt raises and gets all of the marginal hands out. Put it in, Andrew.
I don't think he can hear you.
Can he get unstuck?
I feel like the worst hand you can have here is a pretty good flush draw.
And he says it too.
Oh my goodness.
I folded
He a flush draw.
Dude, I don't like. I wish if you didn't.
Jack.
7. I folded 10-4 of clubs, Andrew.
You have flush draw? Oh, you have 10-4 clubs.
Yeah. Show it. Show it. Come on.
That's
It's a bomb
the only thing I was
pot.
afraid
It's a
of.
bomb pot.
Yeah, that's like, I was like, I'm afraid
And
of.
Andrew folds with Queen Jack. He would have won the hand. He would have doubled up. But Matt Vaughan plays the nut flush draw aggressively and takes down the pot. He continues to crush this game. He's up over 3,200 now.
I had ace king.
I had a straight back. Queen
Yeah,
jack.
I would have just
Yeah,
stuck
queen
that.
jack.
And then
Straight
he
draw.
calls off.
Amazing how many hands those guys had in 9-win pot.
No, he does.
And we didn't even see a turn card.
Yeah, I mean,
I would have
unbelievable.
just stuck
Matt
this
Vaughan's spoiling the party. Thanks a lot,
Yeah,
Matt.
Yeah, come on, man.
Party
I had a
pooper.
gutter too, though. If I hit, I hit. If I
You already
hit,
got
I
all
hit.
the money. Why you gotta do? Why you gotta do that?
Yeah, let us
pretty no
whatever.
good.
Yeah, I know.
Fine.
I just
We are going to go overtime, guys. We're going to do a little bit of overtime here for you. It's supposed to end now, but we're going to go a little over.
Tell us an answer straight up.
You guys,
Go ahead.
It's overtime. All right, let's go.
we are going to go overtime, guys. We're going to do a little bit of a, we're going to do a little bit of a, we're going to do a little bit of a, we're going to do a little bit of overtime here for you. Supposed for you. Supposed for you. Supposed to end now.
As many drinks as
Let
they
us
can
know.
get on the fucking tray.
I'm buying this round.
Woo! You're damn right.
We're gonna let
Show us the hashtag
No
OT
one's
or
fighting
riot
it.
Yeah.
in the chat.
What do you guys want? Do you guys want OT or you want a riot?
Happy to do it.
All right. I like it.
We don't need to make me feel bad
Probably,
about
probably not the question to ask them.
Cactus.
So this hand was one of the last hands of the night and was pretty weird. It was decided that for whatever reason Brad was going to straddle under the gun to 30 instead of 10, or maybe it was a double straddle to 30. And then Ramsey decided to live straddle from middle position or something like that, and he made it 60. So his bet is live, Brad's bet is live, and the action starts to the left of Ramsey. Ends up folding around to Brad, and he just calls the 60. I'm next to act with ace queen offsuit, and I think I make a pretty sizable mistake by just calling here. In my head, I was trying to keep the pot a little bit smaller. It's already over 180 in the middle, and I just really wanted to see a flop, see what would happen. But in reality, I think there's enough hands that Ramsey will just fold if I make it like 250 or something like that, that it's got to be better than calling and going out of position against him. Plus, he ends up making it into an even more awkward spot for me because I call and he raises to 260. Brad ends up getting out of the way, and of course my hand is way too strong to fold, especially given the fact that I just call instead of raising. And the flop comes out Jack 10-10. So I flop a gut shot in 2 overs, but it's not a really fun spot to be in. I check, Ramsey bets another 260, and I'm just in this very uncomfortable situation where there's a lot of money in the middle already, but there's so much money behind. And honestly, we're starting to get a little bit outside my comfort zone in terms of how big this pot could get. We are over 2K deep to start this hand, and there's just not a lot of situations where I expect to pretty easily get in $2,000 to $3,000 against someone. And Ramsey is the player who I might have to call down with ace high here. So I wasn't happy about it, but I did make the call on the flop, just thinking I'm ahead of way too much of his range to fold.
So he plays the 80 to 120 buy-in here.
Stop.
About 10 buy-ins deep.
Yeah.
Just trying to run it up, guys.
Busted all the money I
He's
brought
trolling.
from
I
the
play
upstairs.
I play
Really?
5-5 and 5-10, 10-20. A lot of 5-5 and then 5-10, 10-20. Not as much as I used to, but pretty often. Yeah, it's a lot of hours, 40 hours of playing and plus the show.
No, I haven't.
625.
Ramsey with some diabolical plans here, making a 625 on the turn. But he's also up against the Soul Reader.
Matt made the right call on the flop.
The turn ends up coming the 6 of diamonds. It's the second diamond on board, but I also have the ace of diamonds, so I don't consider it to be a super relevant card. It's effectively a brick, except that Ramsey can pretty much turn
Ramsey
any
wants
hand into a
nothing more
bluff
than
here.
to outplay
He can be
Matt,
bluffing with a
Vaughan,
6.
and-
He can be bluffing with a pair of 5s. So when I check and he bets again, and it's pretty big, I'm starting to think about like maybe check jamming to get him to fold a pair, or potentially calling down just to hope that my ace high is good. But it's tough because on the river, he's pretty much always going to have 6 or more outs against me, and I'm never really going to know which those cards are. And I'm going to have to call down on pretty much anything that is probably a 6 or worse, a 6 or lower, and then really extrapolating, thinking that he would bet almost anything. I kind of have to assume that I'm going to have to call down on almost any run out. Now, I do have cards that can help me, but I don't think I can rely on those. I can't just hope that it's like a 10 or higher to be able to call down. That's just, he's betting too big for me to do that. I have to either be calling down or check jamming here, and I think calling down probably is the right play. But in the moment, I just decided, you know, I'm up a lot of money for me. This is a big session. This could be a pot where I have to put all my money in. In fact, I'm expecting to face a jam on the river, most rivers. And I just wasn't prepared to do that. I decided I should cut the losses here. And I'm not super proud of that because I do want to be at the point where I can just make that play because I think it's right and call down twice. But the problem is, in my current, bankroll situation and in my current level of play, I just didn't feel like I was necessarily going to make the right decision on the river if I call the turn. And so that's why I started to gravitate toward either check jamming or folding here. And I just decided that booking that win was kind of more important to me than making the right decision in what I felt was a pretty close spot here. So I did end up kind of just making a sheepish, disappointed fold, and Ramsey did have the bluff, of course, with actually very, very few outs. He had the least outs he could pretty much have.
Show the 10. You always have to show the 10.
I don't have one.
Oh.
I think you have a 10.
I had a jack. I wish I just
Now
gave
Matt
it.
Vaughan is going to fold this time, take the low variance route, and Ramsey gets a bluff through. And Ramsey is in the green right now.
Yeah.
Takes down that pot with aggression. King high.
Why are they going to do it?
E. Boyvin said Matt Vaughan is awesome.
You give nothing away. It's annoying.
Aiden said, to be honest,
good for
Ramsey's
you,
kind of
but it's
goat.
annoying for me.
One of the best constructed
I
I mean,
sentences
I'm
I've ever
not,
seen.
because I was like this fucking close to just saying
What kind
all
of a
in,
poker
and I
player
didn't.
are you? You
but-
give no tells off.
Ramsey?
How do I play against you?
Ramsey, do I give anything else?
Yeah, you're a nice guy. It's hard to hate you.
guessing
That's
it was
what you give
7-8
away.
or 7-9.
I think that's our last hand. So we're going to end on the Trooper winning a hand. So Matt, our big winner, Matt Vaughan, wins $2,700. Ramsey basically breaks even. Andrew Nemi loses about $600. The Trooper wins
Not even one.
about $600. You see the VPIPs here. Weeze and Ramsey the most active, of course, no surprise there. The pre-flop raise percentages, Ramsey way out in front, raising at 32%. He was definitely the action tonight. Brad didn't get a lot of hands. He was at 6%. We'll go back and look at the biggest winners today. Matt Vaughan, of course, wins about $2,700. And the Trooper, who wins about $600. Jamie Staples, who wins about $200. And then Wayne, who wins about $400. Those are our 4 winners for today.
Jeez, this is good.
I mean, it used to be like that boy used to like break down. Yeah.
Wait till it starts recording so we can say happy new party.
Tell me when you're recording, Matt.
Let me know. No, which one did you talk to? Let me know when you're hitting the record button. This will be yours.
What? I'm hitting. It's recording. What am I supposed to say?
You're supposed to let me know when you're recording so we can call you a giant nit on your fucking.
I'm a nit.
It's facing you.
Yeah, because he was telling me I'm supposed to say I'm a nit. All right, there you go. That's Ramsey. Thanks for that. Got Andrew, Brad. We got Wheezy and Patrick. Vlogception. Wow, he just doesn't even care. What a baller.
Andrew, you lost apparently. Sorry, man. Sorry, Andrew. You gotta.
This is like the nut low, right?
So this one's yours.
Yeah. Like I'm gonna be cash.
And you bought out. So
I bought
out.
Don't forget mine.
Okay, cool. So
I mean,
go ahead
I'll
and
be
pick this
glad.
one in the back.
But
You know what? Since you have no stake in this, you're picking.
Okay, I love it.
Do it. Shuffle them behind your
So
back.
tell me the rules. What do I do?
Shuffle them and pick one.
Come here.
No,
Why
you're
don't we
good.
have him pick?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. You gotta pick.
No, give him all the cards right now. Give him all the
Why
cards.
can't I be a part of
Because
it?
fuck you, you bought out, you fucking nit. Alright.
So put the cards out just one by one on the table.
And then the last one pays.
You fucked up. This would have been a better video if I do it.
Oh yeah.
All right, I'm done.
oh shit.
Good luck.
You win 6K
Ramsey?
yesterday and then just
6K,
fucking gets out a credit card roulette. Uh-oh.
Oh shit.
Oh no, this is not good.
Mimi's card.
That's Andrew's card.
He's
yeah.
out.
Mimi's out.
Oh no! Shit.
How many are left?
Two.
Oh god. What the?
Just you and me?
The 2 guys with the cameras, obviously.
Please pick the blue chase.
Left or right?
I'm not. No, I can't. No, you gotta do it.
Throw one on the table.
You gotta do it.
Matt, you want all the money?
All right, it's only fair. All right, good game, guys. Good game.
I mean, dude, at this time, it's gonna take us less than 15.
We got the classic lineup. We did it. He's losing control. Hold on, he's already lost. He's all over the place. God damn it.
How did you pull that out again? Alright, I got winner He's the best. I want to play it. He's too good.
Every once in a while, things go better than you could possibly imagine. This was one of those nights.